It's in Melville, Westchester, where else?
In Manhattan as well.
Okay, so all over the place. We'll be right back after this brief intermission.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You're bringing your daughter to her favorite pop star's concert. Do you A, wear earplugs?
Isn't this fun, Dad?
I have a soft pretzel.
B, remember the moment with matching concert t-shirts.
That's going to be $180.
Or we can just take a photo.
C, show her how you used to do concerts.
We're going crowd surfing.
I can't. It's so heavy. Oh, my God.
Or D, just roll with it.
Woo! Justin! Look at us from here!
Justin! OMG! I love you, Justin! I love you!
When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers. But that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org/NY. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Portions of today's local news for My Hometown have been made possible by Herald Community Newspapers. For the most comprehensive local news, visit liherald.com. Got a story to tell? Call 516-569-4000.
WHPC.
And now we return to My Hometown.
Welcome back to My Hometown. I'm your host, Bill Horan, along with Jon Gallo. And today our special guest is Leslie Tayne, the Managing Director of Long Island headquartered Tayne Law Group, PC. Leslie, what are some of the other things that should be considered now when people come to see you to talk about debt, whether going into it or perhaps now they're into it, it's too late. They've heard this, but the student is now no longer a student looking for a job.
There's a lot of things that one needs to consider certainly when you're going into getting a loan. Who's taking the loan in the family? Is there a co-signer to that loan? If you are the co-signer to that loan for a grandchild, a niece, a nephew, I've seen those situations. What do you feel is the responsibility level of that student? Do you feel like they're going to be able to pay it back? Because remember, if you co-sign a loan and they can't pay, you are going to be ultimately responsible for that loan. It will impact you, your credit, your finances, and they'll come after you as well as going after the student. But if you're working and you have assets, they're more likely to come after you than the student.
Oh, that's really important. Let's stop there since I'm the oldest person in the room. So should the parents sign when they're taking out the loan? Should they not? Is there a way around that?
I'm not a fan of the Parent Plus loan situation. I am a bigger fan in most circumstances of the student taking the loan if they can get it, because the student will be more responsible for it. And again, the repayment and default terms are better in those loans than they are in the Parent Plus loans. So I understand that many people like to take the Parent Plus loans. I also find them to be very expensive with higher interest rates as a general rule. So I prefer, when I'm advising people, if there's a choice, that the student take the loan. Again, if you want to pay the loan back for the student, that's totally fine. You can still pay the loan for the student. But to obligate you to have that loan when you're in a different stage of your life, you may be you're at least 40 if your kid's in college. So 40, you're 50, you're 60. I've seen people 70 and 80 still paying loans for their kids.
Notice she's pointing to me when she gets to 80. Did you see that, John?
No pointing whatsoever. But I still see people who are getting on in age responsible for loans. And I see people who go into retirement who have co-signed student loans, and they're still responsible for those loans, because what ends up happening is their kids then get married and have kids and have other obligations, and they've been paying the loans, and maybe their kids are now struggling a little bit, so they're still paying the loans, and it becomes a big struggle for somebody in their 60s and 70s to be paying loans on behalf of their kids, because they're on now more fixed income and a limited income. So my preference when I'm talking to most people is to try to get the student to take the loan. Again, there are many more favorable options in repayment for the student, and it holds the student accountable for their education, and it holds them accountable for the cost of the education. What if that student doesn't finish school for whatever reason, or something happens? So life does happen. I try to explain that to people. You never know what you're going to encounter in life. You may also have many children. I have 3 children, so for me to obligate myself to one child's loans, let's say my oldest, because that one's first, and not my other 2, wouldn't be fair. And what I have seen is people who have obligated themselves to loans, and then when their other children get into college, they can't get loans because they're now maxed out in their ability to take loans. So if you have the children take the loans, you lessen that debt-to-income ratio restriction. So there's so many things to consider. And again, it does sometimes help to have an expert sitting there helping you map this out a little bit and take a look at the student versus the parents or the co-signer of those loans, the type of loans that you're taking, and all the terminology so that you can make a really good decision about it.
John, as the old person here and hearing this, I'm just going to say I know there's a lot of parents now saying, wait a minute, this is making a lot of sense. So if they want to know more after the show, is there a website or how should they get in touch with you?
Yep, there's a lot of ways to get in touch with me. My office phone number is 631-470-8204. You could always Google Leslie Tayne. It's spelled T like Tom, A-Y-N-E. I'm all over the internet. We have a Facebook page. We have our regular website, which is www.taynelaw.com. The book is called Life in Debt, and that could be found at lifeindebtbook.com or on Amazon. So there's lots of ways to find me. You can simply just Google me, and you'll pull it right up.
And even if you're not using this right now, take it down because you know this weekend or next weekend someone's going to be talking to you about student debt, and you're going to say, I heard that great radio show and that great attorney Leslie Tayne, and here's some information, and they will get in touch with Leslie. John, I think you had a question.
Yes. Okay, to the point that you were just mentioning, how can students and I guess their parents be more proactive, specifically like as they're like before graduation and just starting out their college careers? Like what maybe can they do to, again, kind of blunten the burden, I guess, on the back end?
Well, there's a number of things that you can do. You can take a look at what all of the expenses are, not just tuition and books, transportation costs back and forth, where the kids are going to socialize. If you go to school in Miami, the kids tend to socialize on South Beach. That's very expensive versus socializing in a very rural area. How much spending money are the kids going to need? Are they joining a fraternity or sorority? Because that's a big cost as well. And there are ways to mitigate those expenses. One of them is to have a job. My oldest daughter worked and she works for a company that she's able to come back and work when she's on break. So she comes back from her breaks and she goes back to work for a few days, and she's able to even transfer that to Boston where she goes to school. So there are a lot of ways to do that so that she has her own spending money, and I'm not giving her extra spending money on top of the cost of the education. If you're taking loans, my suggestion and strong recommendation is to pay the interest while you're in school. This way, when you graduate, the balances don't go up. You graduate with the exact amount of money that you took out. You can make payments while you're in school. I know there are deferment periods, forbearance periods, and that you're not required to make the payments until after you graduate. But my suggestion is, if you have the money and you're working, my suggestion strongly is to start paying down those loans. Pay for some of the education. Send them $50 a month, $100 a month. Something that you could come up with in your budget that makes sense. Don't leave the loans until after you graduate when they go up to, at $50,000 a year in school, you're at $200,000, but when the interest is accumulating between 4 and 7% or even 8%, you're talking about not having $200,000 in loans when you graduate. That interest gets compounded. So what that means is that you have a $50,000 loan with interest. That interest becomes principal. Then there's interest on top of the principal balance. So that's what continues to compound that. A $200,000 loan when you graduate will take you a minimum of 30 years to pay back. Yeah. By the time you finish paying for that, your children will be going to college and you'll be back in the same situation. Try to pay the loans down that you can. Look for work study options. Look for ways while you're in high school to get college credit transferred to your college so you don't have to take as many credits. You might be able to graduate a little early. What I'm noticing now, again, because my kids are the same ages, is that they're looking at graduation times. They're not looking at 4-year graduations anymore. They're looking at 5- and 6-year graduations. They're saying, we want you to graduate on time, so that means you have to take a summer program. Is the major that your children are looking at, or that you as a student looking at, requiring a summer program? The summer program at some of these schools are $15,000 just for the summer programs. So consider that as well. Is the major that you're choosing a 4-year, 5-year, or 6-year program?
Leslie, this sounds like a commercial for Nassau Community College. It is not a commercial, but John looks so happy right now that he went to Nassau, so I think he's really happy. Before we finish up the show today, I want to hear a little bit about your book. You have a great title, Life and Debt, D-E-B-T. talk about that. Is that all about student loans, or what are some of the things in there that people may get hold of that and learn about?
It's not all about student loans, but it does touch on student loans and budgeting and learning to understand that life has debt in it, and there is good debt and bad debt, and you can live with debt, and you can keep debt on the good side versus the bad debt.
Is that like good fat and bad fat? Help people tell us. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There is healthy debt, but healthy debt can turn into bad debt if it's not managed correctly. So obviously buying a house would be considered good debt. However, if you take on a bill, either a rent or a mortgage that's close to 50% of your income, that's going to become bad debt because that's just too much in the proportion of your income to support that. You won't have enough money to pay your other bills.
And foreclosure and everything like that.
You could definitely get into lots of trouble, and we do help people with all kinds of other debts as well, credit card debts, business loans, and mortgages as well. So you definitely want to take a look at and understand. And through the book, Life in Debt, it tells you what is good debt and bad debt. There's lots of great tips in there on managing debt, on living with it, on learning to love it. You know, I know people think this is a crazy statement, but when my bills come, I'm happy to pay the bills. And the reason why I'm happy to pay the bills is because I can pay them. And I know when the bills are coming. I know what's due. I know what my budget is. I know what I could spend each week. And that's a healthy relationship with money and finances and debt. It becomes unhealthy when you're not paying attention to it. And the book really helps people put that into perspective. It's written so that it's easy to understand. There's budgeting tips in there. There's discussions about credit, understanding your credit and your credit scoring, and things like that. So Life in Debt book is the book to read.
I definitely think that's something that, after hearing what you're saying today about the college debt and just a little pre-preparation for students and for the parents alike, that book, Life in Debt, is going to be the bestseller after today. Leslie, you've made so many really great points. I think anybody, and John, I'm sure many of you fellow students, before signing anything about a loan, I think they want to go see you and talk to you about it, and at least have that counseling, because you've been there, done that, and again, you're living it out with your own children.
Yep,
so
it's certainly worth the consultation. It's again, you're taking on $30,000, $50,000 in debt, a small nominal fee to understand what you're doing ahead of time. To me, seems like a worthwhile investment, and it's a great gift too. So if you're thinking about graduation gifts and other things like that, we actually do have people buy them gift cards or credits toward an hour consultation with us about credit or debt or finances.
I never thought of it, but it probably really is good. So in order for us to do that, you have to give us some information. Where do we get in contact with you?
At TayneLaw.com or 631-470-8204. But again, you can Google Leslie Tayne or Tayne Law, spelled T like Tom, A-Y-N like Nancy E, and you can definitely find me very easily. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, so we're out there everywhere.
All the platforms, yeah. Sure.
Leslie, thanks so much for being with us today. We'd like to thank you as our guest, and mention to our audience, and to remember, our guest today has been Leslie Tayne. She is the founder and managing director of the financial firm Leslie Tayne PC. They're located in Melville, in Manhattan, she said, in Westchester, and probably 20 other places by the time the show is over.
We are expanding. We just were approved to franchise, so we will be opening offices in a lot of other areas. So we hope to be able to reach as many people as possible to help them with any kind of debt-related issue that they have. So that's the Tayne Law Group.
Thanks so much, Leslie. And I'm Bill Horan, along with Jon Gallo. Thanks for listening to My Hometown.
We like to get your feedback on My Hometown. Send your comments to whpc@ncc.edu. My Hometown is produced by Jim Green, executive producer. Nassau Community College, where success starts and continues. Till next time, this is Bill St. James. And remember, there's no town like your hometown.